Well, ladies and gentlemen, Sebring International Raceway, 3.74 miles, about maybe a foot and a half of elevation. One of the most fun but also rough tracks. You go down the start, the turn Cube 3 architecture's turn 1 into turn 3. That's the Cube 3 section of the track. And then you get off of the old runway onto some asphalt, 15 different surfaces under the bridge, and then a long top gear, long drive into turn 7, down to usually the lowest gear, the second lowest gear in the Mission Foods turn 7, back through 8 and 9, an unbelievable section that if you get that section wrong, you could lose a whole second and a half. Then to turn 10, 11, 12, 13, the really twisty bits through the tower turns and Bishop's Bend into the Bennett Bridge Hall section of the track. And this is one of the most important sections of the track. You'll see a lot of passing. If you get this section wrong and you don't set yourself up for an almost 3/4 of a mile straightaway into Sunset, into turn 17, one of the roughest sections of the track, back to the lots of fun out there as you see Michelle and Eric Whitnable hosting, giving our Summit $50 to the podium finishers. They can go to Summit, order some parts, and they can get $50 off of the parts that they order with our great partners of Summit Racing. And you see some great shots here of our pickup truck. And then Shannon Ivey. There's DJ Jans, one of the people that I credit with saving the Trans Am series and keeping it running. So thank you, DJ, and the brains behind the Young Guns Challenge. We get a great shot looking down here at that front straight, Cube 3 Architecture's turn 1 at Sebring International Raceway, which, as we spoke about, you're looking down the runway for the B17s and the B24s, and then this is the purpose-built racetrack part, turn 7, the famous hairpin. There's stories of Sterling Moss asking for a Coke in his race, and one of his crew handed it off to him at the hairpin. He drank it and then gave him back an empty bottle as he's driving in the 12 hours. We do have a lot of spectators here at the Sebring Speed Tour. SpeedTour.net for tickets for tomorrow. It is going to be an absolute blast. I was talking to Wayne Estes, the president of Sebring, and this is their second largest spectator event of the year behind the 12 hours. And the staff here at Sebring are absolutely phenomenal to work with. Coming up next, we have the Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli qualifying in TA, and then XGT, SGT, and GT. That should be a lot of fun to watch. So stay tuned for that as the Trans Am cars, the ground pounders. You can see part of the airport there. Still an active airport, still active runway, but basically we took over half of the runway for the B-17s and B-24s back in World War II. This is our 2025 Trans Am Series presented by Pirelli event schedule. You can see the national championship goes to all of the best tracks in North America. I say North America because we do visit Ron Fellows' Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And what a track and what an event it was. Unbelievable. Maybe one of my favorites from last year. Just some unbelievable fans. We had about 40,000 fans there. So if you have a passport, try to make it up to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. You will not be disappointed as they release the Trans Am cars coming on track right now. So the Trans Am cars coming on track now. Let me explain the rules of Trans Am qualifying. We have these great Pirelli P0s. A Trans Am race is 100 miles or 75 minutes, whichever comes first, but they have to run the tires that they qualified on. So everybody's trying to make the fastest lap in the least amount of laps as they can, because Sebring can wear out tires with 15 to 17 different racing surfaces dating back to the early 40s. Some of the surfaces, they want to try to get their fastest lap within lap 3 or 4. So they're going to go out there and warm up the tires as quickly as they can. You'll see some of these teams and competitors almost work together on this first opening lap so that everybody, and they'll space themselves apart in a way that they can get those flyers in. And it's a funny thing to work with your competitors, but that's just what they have to do in this kind of driving.
Well, and you got to have a little bit of respect for your fellow competitor too, right? And make it fair for everybody.
We're seeing there that McNichols of two-time champion Amy Ruman. The fans here at Sebring are some of the most well-educated motorsports fans that we get.
Oh, yeah.
And they do follow the series, and they'll be back here for the 12-hour. It's almost like Green Bay Packer tickets. Like some of these people
they're already
around
lined
here,
up out there. Have you seen them?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Lined up for the 12-hour to get the best camping spots.
They've had the same spots for 30, 40, 50 years. It's families pass it down to families. It is quite a tradition here at the 12-hour.
And you said you haven't been yet?
No, I've been to the 12-hour.
Oh, you have?
Yep.
Okay.
Really liked it.
We need to fix that if you haven't.
I believe I came to either the 11 or the 2012.
Okay.
It was the SVRA was hosting a 50 years of MG racing at Sebring, so I couldn't miss that. As an MG fan, I could not miss that.
No. It'd be a good one. Paul Menard at the front, something he's very accustomed to.
Running that Pittsburgh paints, which is the Menards family of brands, their paints. And a really neat livery. One that I'm not used to seeing him in. You know, all last year he was in that green Menards. I'm a Midwest kid, so I know Menards very well. And then Masood is out there. A driver that has been with us for a long time in Trans Am, but missed last year and is back with us. So it's great to have him back out there. Watch out for Brent Cruz in that number 70. But now you're going to start to see these heat up. So right now we've got Paul Menard out there. We've got David Pinterick. So Paul Menard, their first out lap was a 2:27. But now watch for these lap times to drop by about 30 seconds. So we're right on board with Tommy Dreese, Trent Shoring Company, and celebrating 50 years. So Ralph, you know more about this than I do. Walk us through this in-car. So now he's up to 100 miles an hour, approaching turn 10.
Yep, you're seeing on the left brake and throttle, the onboard camera looking at Tommy. Got your RPMs in yellow across the top.
Now he's going to have to go through the dust, and that's not what you want when you're qualifying, because now you've got all that clag and dust on your tires. He's going to try to get back on the tarmac going counter race, which is never suggested, but this is so important to get this right. And I'm glad that car is loud, because we would be hearing some expletives right now if it wasn't. So this is really going to take him an extra lap now to get all that dust off, and he's probably not going to try to do his flyer until he gets all the dust off of his tires. So I think he's probably added a lap to his qualifying.
And you see his best lap and his last lap, which are the same right now.
Coming through the Bennett Bridge Hole section. But there's Paul Menard, last year's champion in the TA series. And then Chris Dyson now has the time. A 2 flat for Chris Dyson. 2.00.054. Paul Menard is a 2.00632. About a half a second. But look at that. One of my favorites, David Pinterick in that Captain America livery. Oh, Brent Cruz.
Yeah, that's shocking.
TA2 champion.
He was the second quickest for a while here.
Not sure what's happened here. TA2 champion 2023.
Here's Wally. One of the newest members of the inaugural class of the Trans Am Hall of Fame as of last night.
Well deserved. Two-time back-to-back Trans Am champion.
And a tip of the visor to his brother Paul, who just got named as an inductee in 2025 into the Pikes Peak Hall of Fame.
Sin of the internet is saying, how is this free? This is amazing. Well, thank you. And we like to, you know, Why this is free is because of all of our incredible sponsors and marketing partners like Cube 3, like Pirelli, like Mission Foods, Optima, Jim Weed, Sunoco, Bennett, Bridge Hall. We have so many great marketing partners and sponsors, and big hats off to them. And also the spectators that come here and support these races. It all helps us do these broadcasts. But here we go, Wally Dallenbach. What are you seeing here, Ralph?
Well, one thing Wally told me is that he was really going to take it easy. He's not so worried about qualifying. He didn't. He knew that come race time, he can get his car to run better over a longer distance and be in a position when we get to the end of the race tomorrow.
The true mark of a champion, really, is how do you finish a race. You know, qualifying is qualifying, but it's where do you finish each race that makes a champion. So sometimes a true champion is super ecstatic about finish seventh or eighth because they have a car that they think should have finished 12th. But if they can bring it home in 7th or 8th and really save that, that's great. They like wins, but sometimes the most important races for drivers is when they have an absolute pig and they can still bring it home somewhat near the front.
One of the things I like is seeing Adam Andretti out here because we saw him have that big wreck in the TA2 race. I wasn't sure if he was going to be feeling up to getting in the race car here.
Again, that is a great point. So there's Masoud. His family is going to be watching from the London area in the Middle East. Whenever he's on track with us, we get lit up from there. And there's that ultimate headers of Wally Dallenbach Jr. Kind of a legendary family in racing, the Dallenbachs.
Oh, well, and that was one of the things Wally was talking about with him and his brother both each getting into a Hall of Fame. He's like, you know, my dad, Wally Sr., of course, he goes, he's in every Hall of Fame, as rightly so. He said, so it's pretty, there's Adam tipping a wheel. He said it's pretty cool for the kids to finally see their dads getting in, not just grandpa. Here's Chris Dyson, and I've been thinking a lot in the weeks leading up to this event. How much do you think Chris Dyson has relived the start here last year?
I would guess he
inside of turn one there. And
woken up at 4 a.m. with thoughts of that.
Wouldn't you think so? He must have been chomping at the bit to get back here and right what he feels is a wrong in his own mind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's had so much success here in 12 hours and in IMSA and in Trans Am. Yeah. But he also is a competitor, and he loves that he has this really stiff competition of the Adam Andretti's and the Paul Menards and the Wally Dallenbach. So I love seeing that. We see the two teammates here with Dreesy Motorsports, Keith Grant and Tommy Dreesy, two very similar looking cars, and there's some gamesmanship behind that. But Paul Menard into the pit, so I think Paul Menard's pretty happy with his lap right now.
Why wouldn't you be with a 157.6?
So can Chris Dyson now put together a flyer and take a 1/10 of a second off of his time, exactly a 1/10 of a second.
Or is the smart move what Menard did, and that's park the car, save those tires.
So much strategy to qualifying. John DeGainer in that Ron Fellows AER car.
Another Hall of Famer, Ron Fellows.
He's in my Hall of Fame of just being the nicest guy.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Oh, they're sending Paul back out. They're not happy with that.
No.
Huh. They must have made an adjustment. That's not like them. They're sending him back out. So now he's got to do probably 2 more laps. Well, 3 more laps, because now he's got to do a warm-up lap, flyer, cool-down lap. Now we're on board with Chris Dyson, going slow.
I know.
And that's America, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. And we're at 1.
In order? Yeah, we are at 1. I think we have the best schedule in road racing. You look at the tracks that we go to.
It's pretty good, buddy. I got to tell you, it is pretty good.
Not a stinker in the bunch.
No.
Paul Menard going out there on his warm-up lap, looking at all of his gauges, seeing how the car feels. It looks like they did make an adjustment to that front left. Not sure what that was. We lost a lot of those mission boards today.
You're going to be busy this afternoon.
I tell you what, though, there's something psychological with that red and yellow that every time I set those up, I want to go have Mexican food.
Now you just made me hungry. I guess I know where I'm going for dinner tonight, right?
And I love Mexican food. I could have it all the time. Because I was talking to Juan one time. I said, we talk about you every Taco Tuesday. And he said, well, you know you're going to have tacos every day.
Yeah. That you can.
Amy Ruman, two-time champion in that McNichol Chevrolet Corvette. She had a great season last year in that Valley Chevrolet. Great to have Valley back on board with that car. Amy Ruman, basically a true privateer team in Trans Am. It's her dad, her brother-in-law, her mom that run the Ruman Racing.
One of the Dreesy cars is off here. And that is Tommy, isn't it?
Yeah. Tommy missed a setup. Tommy's crew chief is Gary Seelix, Charlie Seelix's son. And it's funny talking to Gary. Gary said, I can visit my dad. My dad made notebooks of setup for each track. And he visits his dad every day and looks at the notebooks for how his dad would set up for Sebring and the notes. And he talks to him all the time. And I think that's really neat.
That's very cool. Share that experience.
And Gary's son is on the crew also.
Oh, that's
it's
great.
like 3 generations. Something
Charlie
has happened
could set
on
up a
track.
race car, couldn't he?
Yeah, but something has happened. Like there must be a lot of dust or debris or something's happening. Paul Menard still at 157.629. Dyson a tenth of a second behind him. But they're going slower than normal here. Are they coming into the pits? They must be.
Looks like it.
Yeah, they're coming into the pits. Okay. Some great drone shots. That is a daring drone pilot that we have here. Oh, is he going to go under the bridge?
Oh, yeah. And
All right.
Obviously, he's not in the drone, but he is doing it with VR goggles. I don't know where they stationed him. I heard they were going to station him off the backside of the front straightaway tower here. And
it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, what those kids do with those things are amazing.
Yeah. I do like the look of that top liner. Burton Racing, Camaro there of Adam Andretti. Claudio Burton, I call him like a mad scientist. It's crazy what he was coming up with. Chrome Molly from Germany, wanted a very rigid car, kind of a new approach to a TA car. Amy Ruman, two-time champion. I believe she's in the oldest chassis in the bunch.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you know, that vet has got some legs and laps on it, but boy, it's still strong, isn't it?
Yeah, very strong, and she is quite the competitor. But I tell you who I wouldn't mess with in the paddock, her mom. She is quite a competitor. I'll come up to her sometimes in the pits to ask her a question, and I can tell she's angry, and I just try to politely walk away. One of the greatest people in the paddock. I absolutely love the Ruman family, but she is a competitor. Trent Shoring is a new sponsor with Tommy Dreesy. And for those of you that don't know, Tommy Dreesy, if you've ever been to a movie theater in the last 20 years and you see the upcoming attractions and the big cardboard cutouts and the 3D displays, that all comes from Dreesy Advertising.
Sure does. Been doing it for years.
Mm-hmm. Then there's that Ron Fellows car, the true oldest chassis in the field, but Ruman's not too far behind. But that's John DeGainer out there running that in our kind of heritage class. We saw him in that Devon Evolution in Group 6. That's a mean-looking car, that Camaro.
Mm-hmm.
So Wally Dallenbach, two-time Trans Am champion, absolute legend, great commentator. We were talking at Mid-Ohio. My son was with me, and I told my son, who doesn't follow motorsports, but he has watched Ricky Bobby and loves it. And I was like, he's the commentator in Ricky Bobby. And then all of a sudden, my son's eyes just lit up. It's like, whoa, that's amazing. And Wally just looked at me like, oh, come on now.
Yeah. Wally and I spent a lot of years doing NASCAR races together on TNT.
And I used to watch him in Trans Am on TNN, the Nashville network.
I
Remember
used
that?
to be on there.
Yeah.
The earliest parts of my career was on TNN.
Yeah, and I was watching it. I grew up in Trans Am in the Tommy Kendall, Boris said that era. When were you doing Trans Am?
Well, let's see. Started doing Trans Am on radio in probably 85, 86.
And isn't it interesting that it's all the same people in the paddock?
For the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. I saw a lot of them here. Wally would have been there. Darren Brassfield was around then. You know. So Celix's, yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and then Kerry Hitt.
Yeah.
People like that. Yeah, it's amazing.
So a lot of the same people. Well, while they take some slow laps and some downtime in the paddock and the pits, we'll go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back for more here at Sebring.
You've got a business to run, big and heavy products to ship, and customers who need them now. When you've got the right driver and the right equipment, you can bet on a spectacular result. Bennett understands complex logistics and puts the best team, the most time, and the latest technology into every customer relationship, so you can sit back, relax, and enjoy the race. Let us handle the rest.
Together, we can move anything.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, totally my fault, but we have some comments here. They want the results, so we're going to give you the results. Paul Menard this is provisional, qualified first with a 157.629. Chris Dyson second with a 157.729. So just a tenth of a second between the leaders. Adam Andretti with a 158.624. Tommy Dreese, 158.977. Now, I think the impressive one was Brent Cruz with a 2.189, because I think he coasted from basically about 500 yards in front of the start-finish line to end up where he was. So he probably would have done quite a bit better and only got in the one flyer. And so that is our top, and I don't have the results anymore because it switched over because we're at the GT classes. So sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Totally my fault. But we're going to the GT of Extreme GT. So Danny Lowry of Bridge Hull and Bennett, And then Billy Griffin is out there in an XGT. Both of those are in Mercedes. Then Kaylee Bryson, our SGT champion from last year. Absolutely phenomenal driver. And now she's moved up to XGT, but in the same car. So I had to ask her what that means. So basically, they took out some restriction, took out some weight, might have added some downforce to that car to make it XGT. But yesterday, she was saying she was about 7 to 8 seconds a lap faster going from SGT setup to an XGT setup. And I was pretty surprised by that. Then we have Paul Tracy, PT, in a new XGT car.
The newly married Paul Tracy.
Newly married? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he got married this past week. He's been on his honeymoon, him and his beautiful wife, Lisa. Congratulations to both of them. Great to see the Lovebirds having a great time and then coming here to continue the honeymoon at the racetrack.
I got to tell you, Paul Tracy looks like he is ready to compete.
Oh, he's really gotten himself back in shape. He works very hard at it. Rides lots of miles on his bicycle. Works hard.
Mustafa Bakir is an XGT. Josh Carlson did really well with us in SGT last year, is back with us. Lee Saunders in an SGT Viper. Patrick Utt is with us in a TA2 SGT. And then Chris Coffey, our GT champion from last year. And Colin Cohen. And then new to the Trans Am series is Mike Fitzpatrick in a GT Aston Martin. Absolutely beautiful car. There's that Paul Tracy car.
Yeah, the black with the white.
To me, it looked like a mini Camaro. I saw it at VIR. I know that's probably not right to say. It's an IRC car, and I'm going to talk to Paul about that tomorrow.
It is an IRC car, and I went over there and spoke with the guys about it a little bit. Basically, it's a simplified Australian supercar, V8 supercar series. They've basically simplified the car from that, and the guy who's designed it and everything spent all his time in V8 supercar, so he went in that direction, and it's been a very fast and they say very reliable race car.
Well, yeah, fast. Look at that. Paul Tracy just already trying to go out on his flyer. Some really cool images here. So you can see there Chris Coffey just weaving back and forth. Colin Cohen following him, both from the Dallas, Texas area. Traffic graph is wrapped on that Maserati. Now his Maserati doesn't go 185 like Joe Walsh's does.
Huh. Probably the most asked question Joe Walsh gets, right?
I bet.
Does your Maserati really go 185?
Colin Cohen, great competitor. Patrick Utt lighting him up. You don't want to do that on brand new tires. Patrick Utt started SafeQuip and recently sold that to Holly, and he's like, now I'm a race car driver. Just living the dream. So I love that for him.
That's a great story. I'd like to have my story go like that.
Yeah, it's great.
Shaheen
but couldn't happen to a better guy.
Now look at what he's doing. Yeah.
So Paul Tracy there out front. Beautiful looking car. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to have Paul Tracy back in the Trans Am series.
Yeah, and we'll see for how long. The team doesn't necessarily plan right now to do the whole season, but they said, we get through Road Atlanta and things are looking a little better. You never know.
These cars are for sale. They're trying to kind of get a series going over here, but if you look at the car, like I said, it was at VIR with us to go through tech to see if it could run in Trans Am. And the formula that they've come up with looks like a really great formula for a really fun race car.
Yeah, and like you said, it looks kind of like a Camaro from the front. Mm-hmm. From the side, it's got a little Ford Mustang, too.
Yeah. There's Kaylee Bryson. Now, I'm not used to seeing Lee Saunders in this Viper. He's been racing a red with a black stripe, more street Viper. What do they call these race prepared Vipers? Are they RCR something?
ACR.
Like? ACR, yeah. I haven't seen him in the ACR Viper, and there's Patrick Utt in the TA2 car. But racing SGT. Look at the wing on that. Danny Lowry races with us, and he's got this hula girl. You'll see the in-car that goes back and forth, and he says he uses it as his telemetry gauge. If she's way over there, you know, and she's moving around, and it's really fun to watch. All right, so now they should be setting up for their flyers. Paul Tracy doing a 207.9. Bryson 208.5. Bryson's in some traffic. You want to give a little bit more room. Actually, no, it's pretty good room there because she might be getting a little bit of the wind there. There's Fitzpatrick in that Aston Martin. As a British car guy, I just have to love that 89X. And they have an arrive and drive program here at Sebring where he says he has 4 of these ready to run in Trans Am, 2 in XGT2, or 2 in SGT, 2 in GT. And if you want to rent a race car and come out and race Trans Am, look at 89X. But new to the Trans Am series. Those Maseratis sound really great.
They sure do.
Let's see if the times come down. Look to your top left. See if the times come down here. Yep.
Tracy knocks 2 seconds off, but not as quick as Griffin.
So Billy Griffin, a multi-time GT class champion in Trans Am, and the car that we saw John Strauss out there with in our Group 12. And then yet last year he moved up to a TA car, and he just was never happy with it. So at VIR, Danny Lowry said, come run one of my Mercedes. And he absolutely fell in love with it, so now he's in the Mercedes. And a very good driver. And not somebody you want to mess with when you see him.
No.
Yeah. And Kaylee Bryson, I always joke, every time she comes to the racetrack, and she races in everything, and she has broken the glass ceiling in just about every style of motorsports she runs in, but she's a big fisherman. And so you'll see her walk through the paddock or drive around the golf cart with her fishing poles, and after her session, she's going to go find some fish near the track.
There you go.
She is from Oklahoma, part of our scholarship program with Pirelli. With that Aaron Pierce Corvette set up last year. That same car was SGT. But you can see that rear diffuser. You can see some of the ground effects on the car to push it up to XGT.
Yeah.
But took out the restriction. They might have removed some weight. But here comes PT. We need to get PT in the booth with us sometime.
I've had Paul with me on different things. He's always fun in the booth.
I always liked Paul with IndyCar because I felt like I wasn't getting the political stance. I was getting his honest opinion. He was not a political person.
You're always going to get the honest opinion from Paul Tracy. You might not like what he has to say, and a lot of people don't, but you are definitely going to get his honest opinion out of it.
Man, that is a cool-looking car.
I got to know Paul when he was starting off in Formula Atlantic way, way, way back when.
He's Canadian, is that correct?
And sponsor on the car was Sherwin-Williams. Do you know why?
Paint?
Yeah, but do you know why? So Paul's dad had the painting contract, you ready for this? For the CN Tower in Toronto. So he called up Sherwin-Williams and said, hey, I've got to paint this little building over here. And I'm
the most famous building.
I'm more than happy to use your paint, but here's what you got to do. You got to sponsor my kid's race car over here. So that's why for years Paul had Sherwin-Williams on his race car.
That is awesome. The CN Tower would probably take a few gallons of paint.
Yeah, there's a couple up there.
Lee Saunders, many-time SGT champion. That stands for Super GT. I love those Mercedes. And new for this,
on a C6.
Yeah. New for this year, we have these new color boards that go across to kind of delineate which class. It makes it a little bit easier for the spotters. So the gray is the GT, green is XGT. What do you mean the C6? The Corvette? Okay, yeah.
C6 body.
Yeah. So the producers are asking me the difference between, well, TA are no driver assist, 900-ish horsepower monsters with no driver aids. Basically, we call it 900 horsepower go-karts. It's all up to the driver. Way too much power, really. It's very fun cars to drive. I've talked to Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR drivers. Everybody wants a couple laps in a TA car because it's the last true just driver car with too much power. So we see Kaylee spin. XGT is, we aren't allowed to call things like GT3, GT4, so they fall in line with that. So the Extreme GT is basically everything you can throw at a production car. Then a little bit scaled back is the Super GT, and then GT is basically factory built, like you're seeing here, race cars with a wing, but you can't really do much to modify what came from the factory. Is the best I can do to explain it without getting myself in trouble. I'm seeing from John Phippen that Lynn St. James did the driver start command. John Phippen, Mid-Ohio announcer, the announcer for our FRF4. John Phippen, great to see you here joining us. Thank you so much for joining us, and can't wait to work with you at NOLA. We'll be at NOLA here pretty soon for the NOLA Speed Tour and the first event of FRF4. I love NOLA.
Yeah, NOLA's great.
Love the staff there, too. David Pace does a great job there with us, and just love the look of this Aston Martin. That is a mean-looking car. Patrick Hutt coming into Mission Foods in number 49. Let's see what kind of times we've got here. Paul Tracy at 2:02. So just 2.5 seconds behind the TA cars. That XGT car's a little crazy. I was not expecting that.
Well,
2.5. I mean, he's going to be running up there with the Trans Am cars, and we don't do a split start.
There was a time in auto racing where Paul Tracy was arguably, certainly in the top 10, maybe top 5 of drivers around the world. I mean, he was an excellent, excellent race car driver. So the skill set is without a doubt there. And put him in the right car. I mean, the guy almost won the Indy 500, depending on how you look at it. He did or didn't win, right?
If you want him to be nice to you, he won the race.
No, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily disagree.
He won our V-Rock race at Indy in a SVRA, and he held up 2 fingers.
Second win.
For the second win at Indy.
That's classic PT.
But you know what's funny? He raced for Roger Penske, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
In IndyCar. I definitely would put Rick Mears with Roger Penske, or a Joseph Newgarden with their personalities, or a Mark Donohue. But not a Paul Tracy. That was an odd one for me.
But don't forget, Mr. Penske also put Kurt Busch in a car.
That's true,
for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And Kurt and Paul, very similar in their what do they call A personality?
Yeah, but they're not what you would call Penske perfect personalities.
That's what I mean. Yeah, no, they're not. But here's Paul, door open. No, they're not. They don't fit the traditional Penske mold the way a Rick Mears did.
Yeah.
Or Emerson Fittipaldi.
Now, who was in the Porsche? That's the first time we've seen this. That's Mustafa Bakir in the GT, who will be here, I think, with the 12 hours that was out in our Group 10 class.
Here's the
great to have him. Another Carroll Shelby car iteration. He went from Cobras to Vipers. What's his fascination with snakes?
Well, when you live in
that's
that
true.
part of Texas, you see a lot of them, right?
When you're a chicken farmer in Texas.
You and I are both looking out the window, and that is that a Model A?
Model T. That's the Depot Model T. I had a 1927 Model T Depot. That was just the hood, and then you could build whatever you wanted out of wood.
And you can have it in any color you want as long as
yeah,
it's
as long
black.
as it's black. There's that Aston Martin. Paul Tracy, I can't believe those times. That's going to make some TA drivers upset.
That's going to make him very happy, though, right?
It's going to sell some of those cars.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, Paul Tracy's at the top of the board. We're going to take a quick step away here, take care of some business on our end, and we'll be back with more racing action. And we actually have a couple of races left to go here today as we wind down the afternoon here at the 2025 Sebring SpeedTour season opener.
Is this? Look at this view from Losowski.
It brings all my fans, it brings the audience into the car with me.
Speed turn 140 mile an hour entry speeds.
The quickest and most efficient way for me to get information to my drivers is from using the V-Box HT2 system.
There's Forrest said.
One of the ways you overtake here at Sebring is really good in the braking zone, like this one right here.